Gather round, friends, closer to the fire. The Delaware woods can get mighty dark and full of whispers once the sun dips below those ancient trees, can't they? Tonight, since we're nestled deep in its embrace, I reckon it's high time we shared some of the tales that cling to this land like the Spanish moss down south. Stories that make the hair on the back of your neck stand tall and send a shiver down your spine. We'll start with an urban legend that chills the blood of anyone who's ever driven the long, lonely stretch of Route 9 after dusk. Now, most folks have heard tell of a headless rider galloping through Sleepy Hollow, but Delaware has its own spectral equestrian, a phantom born of our own history and the shadowy lanes that crisscross our state. They say he rides the blacktop of Route 9, especially in the dead of night, searching, always searching. Stories vary. You see, depending on who you talk to and how close they claim to have come to the ghostly figure. Some whisper he's a Hessian soldier, lost and beheaded during the Revolutionary War battles that once raged not too far from that very road. They say his regiment was ambushed, a brutal, swift affair, and in the chaos, his head was clean severed by a rebel saber. Now, forevermore, he rides that route, a dark silhouette against the pale moonlight, his spectral steed's hooves making no sound on the asphalt. He's forever doomed to retrace his last ride, forever seeking the head that was so violently taken from him. Others claim he's the spirit of a local farmer, a man known for his stubbornness and his prized stallion. Legend has it he was riding home late one stormy night, years and years ago, when a runaway carriage, careening blindly in the downpour, struck him. The impact was horrific, they say, leaving him, well, his loyal horse, spooked and injured, bolted into the darkness, never to be seen again in the land of the living. Now, both master and steed in their spectral forms are bound to Route 9, the farmer forever mounted, his empty neck, a terrifying void in the darkness. The sightings usually happen late, mind you, when the air is thick with humidity, and the only sounds are the chirping of crickets and the hum of your own engine. Drivers, their eyes heavy with fatigue, glance in their rearview mirror and see a dark shape gaining on them with impossible speed. They look again, and there he is, a rider on a powerful horse. But where his head should be, there's only nothing. Just the dark outline of his shoulders and the rise of his neck. Some say if you're driving alone on Route 9 late at night and you see a single flickering light in your rearview mirror growing larger, don't stop. Don't even slow down. They say that's his lantern, the only light he carries in his endless search. If you stop, he'll pull alongside you, his spectral horse snorting mist into the cool night air, and he'll turn his headless form towards your window, a silent, chilling question in his posture. No one knows what he wants, but nobody who's seen him has ever stuck around to find out. There are stretches of Route 9, especially near the old church and the forgotten cemetery just south of Blackbird, where the sightings are more frequent. Locals avoid those parts after midnight, taking the long way around, even if it adds precious minutes to their journey. They know the stories, they've heard the hushed whispers, and some of the older ones even claim their parents or grandparents had their own terrifying encounters. One old-timer I knew used to run a gas station just off the highway, swore he saw the Headless Horseman clear as day back in the 70s. He was locking up late one night when he saw a figure on horseback galloping down the road towards him. The horse's hooves silent on the asphalt. As the rider drew closer, the gas station owner said he could see right through the dark shape, the faint glow of the moon visible behind it. And then he saw it, the empty space where a head should have been. He didn't wait around to ask for directions, let me tell you. He dove back inside, locked the doors, and didn't come out until the sun was high in the sky. Now, some folks will try to tell you it's just tricks of the light, or tired eyes playing games in the darkness. But there are too many stories, too many consistent descriptions for it all to be just imagination, don't you think? There's a chill in the air on those lonely stretches of Route 9 at night, a feeling of unease that settles deep in your bones. It makes you glance in your rearview mirror a little too often, doesn't it? It makes you wonder what might be lurking just beyond the reach of your headlights. Well, that's just the first whisper from the shadows, my friends. Delaware holds many secrets, many restless spirits tied to its long and storied past. And speaking of spirits lingering in old places, have you ever heard the tale of the lady in white at the Hotel Dupont? Now that's a story with a touch of elegance and a whole lot of sorrow. This hotel, you see, it's not just a building. It's a monument, a place where elegance and old-world grandeur still hold court. But within its ornate walls and beneath its shimmering chandeliers, there's a sadness, a whisper of a broken heart that refuses to fade. They say it belongs to a woman, a spectral figure forever bound to the hotel, forever known as the Lady in White. The stories vary, as they always do with these things, but the most common one speaks of a bride, a beautiful young woman who was to be married in the hotel's opulent ballroom. The wedding was to be the event of the season, a lavish affair filled with champagne, music, and the promise of a bright future. But the groom, he never arrived. Some say he was a scoundrel, a man who charmed his way into her heart only to vanish at the last moment, leaving her standing alone at the altar, her white gown a cruel mockery of her shattered dreams. Others whisper of a tragic accident, a sudden illness, or a dark secret that forced him to flee, leaving his beloved heartbroken and alone. Whatever the reason, the pain of that day, the humiliation, and the crushing weight of her grief are said to have lingered long after the guests had gone and the music had faded. They say the bride, unable to bear the thought of leaving the place where her dreams had died, took her own life within the hotel walls. And now, her spirit, still clad in her wedding dress, roams the halls, forever searching for the love that was stolen from her. But there's another version, a darker tale that speaks of a woman who wasn't a bride at all, but a guest, a woman of great beauty and wealth who met a tragic end within the hotel. Some say she was murdered, a victim of a jealous lover or a ruthless thief. Others whisper of a terrible accident, a fall from a high window, or a sudden, mysterious illness. Whatever the truth, her spirit, too, is said to linger, a pale figure in white, her sorrow echoing through the grand corridors and the silent rooms. Guests and staff have reported seeing her, a fleeting glimpse of a woman in a long, flowing gown, her face pale and her eyes filled with an unspeakable sadness. They say she glides through the hallways, her footsteps making no sound on the plush carpets, a whisper of cold air accompanying her passage. Some have felt a sudden chill in the air, a drop in temperature that has nothing to do with the hotel's air conditioning. Others have heard soft weeping, a mournful sound that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. And some, the bravest or perhaps the most foolish, have claimed to see her, a shimmering figure in white, her form indistinct, her presence a palpable weight in the air. The sightings are more frequent on the upper floors, they say, especially near the older rooms, the ones that have remained largely unchanged since the hotel's early days. Some of the staff avoid those areas late at night, a sense of unease settling upon them as they walk those silent halls. They say they can feel her presence, a lingering sorrow that clings to the walls like the scent of old perfume. One housekeeper I spoke to, a woman who'd worked at the hotel for over 20 years, swore she saw the lady in white one night while cleaning a room on the 10th floor. She said she turned around and there she was, standing by the window, her white gown shimmering in the moonlight, her face turned away. The housekeeper said she felt a wave of sadness wash over her, a feeling so intense it brought tears to her eyes. When she blinked, the figure was gone. Now, some will say it's just the power of suggestion, the stories and the old building playing tricks on the mind. But there's a feeling in that hotel, a sense of something unfinished, something that lingers beyond the realm of the living. It's a place of beauty and elegance, yes, but also a place where sorrow has left its mark. A place where the lady in white still walks, forever searching for peace in the grand halls of the Hotel Dupont. And speaking of places where spirits linger, have you ever heard of the Screaming Bridge? It's a place where the past echoes in the most terrifying way. Now, almost every state has a bridge like this, a place where tragedy has left an indelible mark, a place where the echoes of the past refuse to be silenced. Delaware is no exception. We have a few bridges whispered about in hushed tones. Bridges that cross forgotten creeks and lonely roads. Bridges where the air itself seems heavy with sorrow. The exact location sometimes shifts depending on who's telling the tale. Some say it's a bridge outside of Newark, shrouded in the shadows of the university's sprawling grounds. Others point to a more isolated crossing down in Sussex County, where the cypress trees stand like silent sentinels along the murky waters. But the core of the story, the chilling heart of the legend, remains the same. It speaks of a terrible accident, a moment of sudden violence that stained the concrete and forever imprinted the bridge with the sounds of suffering. The most common version tells of a young mother driving late at night with her child asleep in the back seat. Perhaps she was hurrying home, or maybe she was lost on unfamiliar roads. Whatever the reason, tragedy struck on that bridge. Some say a drunk driver, headlights blinding in the darkness, collided head-on with her car. Others whisper of a sudden swerve to avoid an animal, sending her vehicle plunging over the side, down into the rocky creek bed below. The details are always gruesome, the ending always the same. The mother and child perished in the wreckage. And now, on certain nights, especially when the moon hangs low and the mist curls around the bridge like ghostly fingers, their final moments are replayed in a terrifying auditory loop. Drivers who cross these bridges late at night have reported hearing it, a blood-curdling scream that pierces the silence, a sound of pure agony that seems to claw its way from the very stones of the bridge itself. Sometimes it's just a single drawn-out cry, a sound that makes the hair on your arms stand up and your heart pound in your chest. Other times it's a chorus of screams, a mother's desperate wail, mingled with the terrified cries of a child. Some say if you stop your car on the bridge in the dead of night, turn off your engine, and listen closely, you'll hear it. The silence of the surrounding woods will be broken by the chilling sound, a sound that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. They say the screams are so real, so full of pain, that they can bring tears to your eyes, even if you don't know the story. There are those who claim to have seen things too, fleeting shadows in their headlights, a white mist rising from the creek below that takes on the vague shape of a woman, or even the faint outline of a car plunging into the darkness. But it's the screams, the unearthly cries of anguish, that truly terrify those who dare to cross these bridges after nightfall. One story I heard from a trucker who used to haul goods down to the shore spoke of him crossing a bridge near Milford late one foggy night. He said the fog was so thick he could barely see the road ahead, and the silence was eerie. Suddenly, a scream ripped through the stillness, so loud and so full of terror that it made him slam on his brakes. He sat there in the cab of his truck, heart hammering against his ribs, listening as the screams continued, a woman's desperate cries for help. He said he couldn't see anything in the fog, but the sound was so real, so close, that he was convinced someone was in mortal danger. Called the police, frantic and shaken, but when they arrived, they found nothing. No accident, no stranded motorist, just an empty bridge shrouded in silence and fog. The trucker swore to his dying day that he heard those screams, a sound he'd never forget. Another tale tells of a group of teenagers who, fueled by bravado and cheap thrills, decided to visit one of these screaming bridges late one Saturday night. They parked their car at one end and dared each other to walk across and back. As they reached the middle of the bridge, the air grew cold, and a thick mist seemed to rise up from the creek below. Then they heard it, a woman's scream, sharp and piercing, followed by the frantic cries of a child. The teenagers, their courage vanishing in the face of the terrifying sounds, turned and ran back to their car, not stopping until they were miles away. They never spoke of what they heard that night, but they never crossed that bridge again. These bridges, these places touched by tragedy, serve as a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the lingering echoes of sorrow. They stand as silent monuments to pain, their stones seemingly imbued with the suffering of those who met their end there. So the next time you find yourself driving on a lonely road in Delaware late at night and you come across an old, unassuming bridge, take a moment to listen. You might just hear the faintest whisper of a scream carried on the wind, a chilling testament to a tragedy long past. And speaking of places with a dark history, have you ever heard the stories that swirl around the old stones of Fort Delaware? Now that's a place where the echoes of thousands of souls still linger. Now, this isn't just some old ruin, mind you. Fort Delaware has a history etched in hardship and loss. During the Civil War, it served as a prison for Confederate soldiers. And let me tell you, life within those stone walls was harsh. Disease was rampant, food was scarce, and many men met their end on that isolated island, far from home and loved ones. It's no wonder then that their spirits are said to linger, trapped between the world of the living and the great beyond. The fort itself is a formidable structure, all cold stone and echoing corridors. Even in the daylight, there's a certain grimness to the place, a weight of history that you can almost feel pressing down on you. But it's after dark, when the tour boats have gone and the island falls silent, that the strange occurrences begin. Visitors and staff who have stayed overnight at the fort have recounted numerous eerie experiences. Disembodied voices are a common report. Whispers in empty rooms, the murmur of conversations that seem to come from nowhere, and even the distinct sound of men shouting or groaning. Footsteps are often heard echoing through the deserted hallways, the heavy tread of boots on stone, even when no one is there. Cold spots are another frequent phenomenon. You might be walking through a room on a warm summer night and suddenly feel a patch of icy air, a bone-chilling cold that has no logical explanation. Some say these cold spots are the lingering presence of spirits, drawing energy from the living. But it's the apparitions, the actual sightings of ghostly figures that truly send shivers down the spine. Many have reported seeing shadowy figures moving through the fort, the fleeting glimpse of a man in a gray uniform disappearing around a corner, or the distinct outline of a soldier standing guard on the ramparts, only to vanish into thin air. One of the most well-known ghostly residents is said to be a Confederate officer who met a particularly grim end within the fort's walls. Legend has it he was unjustly accused of inciting a riot and was subsequently executed. They say his angry spirit still roams the fort, particularly the area around his former cell, and his presence is often accompanied by a feeling of intense anger and unease. Another tale speaks of a doctor who worked tirelessly to treat the sick and dying prisoners. Despite his efforts, many succumbed to disease, and it's said that his weary spirit still walks the halls of the old hospital ward, a faint scent of antiseptic sometimes lingering in the air where he once tended to the suffering. Even the spirits of the prisoners themselves are said to make their presence known. Some have reported hearing the faint sounds of coughing and moaning, the desperate cries of men longing for home. Others have felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of sadness or despair in certain areas of the fort. as if the lingering emotions of the past are still palpable. The dark, cramped cells of the prisoners are said to be particularly active. Visitors have reported feeling watched in those small stone rooms, a prickling sensation on the back of their necks, and some have even claimed to see shadowy figures huddled in the corners. The officers' quarters, too, have their share of ghostly tales. Some say the sounds of phantom footsteps can be heard pacing the floors late at night, as if the long-dead officers are still carrying out their duties. The faint scent of cigar smoke has also been reported in these areas, a ghostly reminder of the men who once commanded the fort. The island itself seems to hold on to the sorrow of the past. Even outside the fort's walls, visitors have reported strange occurrences. The feeling of being watched in the empty fields, the sound of disembodied whispers carried on the wind, and the unsettling feeling that they are not alone on that isolated patch of land. Fort Delaware stands as a stark reminder of a difficult chapter in our nation's history, a place where thousands suffered and died. It's a place where the veil between worlds seems thin, where the echoes of the past are strong, and where the spirits of those who perished may forever be bound to the cold stone and lonely shores of Pea Patch Island. So, if you ever find yourself out on the Delaware River near that imposing fortress, take a moment to consider the souls that still reside within its walls. You might just feel a cold breath on your neck, a whisper in the wind, a silent testament to the haunting of Fort Delaware. And now, as the night deepens and the shadows lengthen, our final tale takes us back to the mainland, to a road well-traveled, yet one with its own spectral traveler, the ghostly hitchhiker of Route 1. Now, Route 1, especially the parts that run along the beaches, can be a lonely road late at night. The summer crowds are gone, the beach towns are quiet, and it's just you, the ribbon of asphalt, and the sound of the waves crashing in the distance. It's on these desolate stretches, under the pale glow of the moon, that she's said to appear. The descriptions vary slightly, but the core of the story remains consistent. She's usually described as a young woman, often dressed in white or light-colored clothing, sometimes looking disheveled, as if she's been walking for a long time. She's always alone, standing by the side of the road, her thumb outstretched, her face often obscured by shadows or turned away from the passing cars. Kind-hearted drivers, seeing a lone figure on a dark road, often stop to offer her a ride. She's usually quiet, giving a brief thank you and then directing them to a nearby town or a specific address, often one that sounds familiar, a place that existed years ago or a house that now stands abandoned. The conversation during the ride is usually minimal. She might answer a few questions in a soft, almost whispery voice, but she rarely offers much information about herself or why she's out so late. There's often a feeling of sadness or a strange sense of urgency about her. Then comes the strange part, the part that turns a simple act of kindness into a chilling encounter. When the driver reaches her destination, they'll often turn to say goodbye, only to find the seat beside them empty. She's vanished without a trace. The doors haven't been opened, her windows are still closed, and there's simply no logical way she could have disappeared. Sometimes, all that's left behind is a feeling of intense cold, a lingering chill in the air that takes a while to dissipate. Other times, the driver might notice the seat where she was sitting is damp, as if she were soaking wet, even if the night is dry. The stories are passed around among locals and those who frequent the coastal route late at night. Truck drivers, late shift workers, and even the occasional tourist who's taken a wrong turn have shared their eerie encounters. Each story adds another layer to the legend, another shiver to the spine. One tale I heard was from a young man driving back from Dewey Beach late one summer night. He saw a girl standing by the side of the road near Rehoboth, looking lost and distressed. He stopped to help, and she asked for a ride to a house just outside of Lewes. He said she was quiet during the ride, but he felt a profound sense of sadness emanating from her. When he pulled up to the address she'd given him, an old, dilapidated farmhouse, he turned to tell her they'd arrived, but she was gone. The passenger door was still locked, and the seat was damp. He said he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just given a ride to someone who wasn't quite alive. Another story tells of a woman who picked up a hitchhiker near Bethany Beach on a foggy autumn night. The young woman in white asked to be taken to a cemetery just outside of town. The driver, though a little unnerved by the request, agreed. When they arrived at the cemetery gates, the hitchhiker simply vanished. The driver, spooked beyond belief, sped away, only to realize later that the cemetery was the final resting place of a young woman who had been killed in a car accident on Route 1 many years before, and she had been wearing a white dress. Some believe the ghostly hitchhiker is a victim of a tragic accident on Route 1, forever trying to reach her final destination, or perhaps searching for someone she lost. Others say she's a warning, a spectral reminder of the dangers of the road, especially late at night. Whatever the truth, the legend of the ghostly hitchhiker of Route 1 persists. A chilling tale that makes you glance twice at any lone figure standing by the side of the road in the darkness. It makes you wonder about the stories they might have, the journeys they might be on, and whether they are truly of this world. Well, friends, the fire is now just embers, and the night has given us its share of chills. These are just a few of the whispers that drift through the woods and along the lonely roads of Delaware. There are many more tales to be told, many more shadows that dance in the corners of our history. But for tonight, perhaps it's best to let these stories settle in your minds as you drift off to sleep under the watchful eyes of these ancient trees. Sleep well, and keep an eye out for any unexpected passengers on your way home. You never know who or what might be waiting by the side of the road. The night offers a fragile peace, but the shadows hold on to their secrets. If you enjoyed these tales from the darkness, be sure to subscribe for more chilling stories. Share this with fellow thrill seekers, and let me know in the comments which story scared you the most. Sleep well, and try not to let the legends creep into your dreams.